Starting. And now it says this Hangout on Air is live.
Perfect. So welcome to this collaboration with Rashawn Richards from Explain Everything. This is Greg Kulowiec from EdTech Teacher. So we're doing this live Hangout on Air tonight to give you your first look at Explain Everything 3.0. So Rashawn, if you want to take it from here.
All right. Thanks, Greg. So I'm actually going to switch over to my my iPad screen here. And Greg, can you confirm that that's visible?
Perfect. We have your iPad.
Perfect. So I'm going to launch. This is still a functional beta of Explain Everything version 3. And just so everyone knows, when you first install the update, you will get kind of a preview that contains quick snapshots of the 4 major changes that I'm actually going to walk through during this conversation here. But for now, I'm going to hit skip. So I actually just loaded up an empty version of the app, though, so everyone knows and doesn't get worried. When you install the update, all of your presentations, all your content, of course, will stay there. It'll just be automatically pulled in. But I'm going to go just back to this clean version. So the 4 major things that we're introducing. The first is this kind of new design to the whole overall feel of the interface. You know, the last major update we did was in February 2013, and well, you know, that's almost 2.5 years ago, and it was time for us to kind of adapt to Apple's kind of flatter design. So that's one of the first things that you'll notice. I'm just going to open up a new project, and now you'll see. Just, you know, all the tools are in the same place, but everything's just had a little bit of a polish. The only major change you'll see here, and I'm going to talk about that last, is where there used to be 2 export buttons, one for export image and one for export video. We've kind of combined those into one and redesigned that export flow, but I'll talk about that in a second. So as I click through here, you'll just see these are some of the pop-up menus. Again, all of the same options and characteristics of each tool, just adapted with this new design. So we hope that for users who might be returning to the app after a few months off because of the summer or just in between projects, that everything's going to feel pretty familiar to them. Any questions, Greg, about the flat design?
No, it looks good. I think the one feature that's a carryover is the ability to do the auto grouping on and off, and we won't really have to address it tonight, but super helpful feature under the pen function and the kind of generic shape option as well.
Sure, and that actually came in a little bit later in the stage. That, you know, we originally only had that drawings auto grouped to objects beneath. So I just drew a rectangle. Now if I, you know, wrote hi on this rectangle, that drawing automatically sticks, and many people liked that as the default with the draw tool. But then we decided, you know, some people might like, you know, their arrow annotations also to auto stick. We don't make that the default, but if that's something you'd like to enable, now if I draw an arrow on this rectangle, because I had auto group on, that too will stick. But
right.
A triple tap can ungroup things, and of course you can use the inspector to ungroup grouped objects.
Perfect.
So yeah, you'll see. I'm just going to click through a couple more of the pop-up menus. The color picker, again, is more or less the same. Same with the slide sorter. It's just all got this kind of more uniform and I think very attractive looking design. So another kind of user interface change that we've made, I'm just going to go to the home screen. I'm going to say no. Well, you'll see that these, even these kind of interstitial menus also have kind of an updated interface. And if you've ever used the phone version, you'll notice some similarities there as far as the menu and button design. But I'm going to go into the settings. And this has probably been one of the most long requested features, including by your colleague, Beth Holland, for having kind of a simpler user interface without necessarily reducing like the overall function of the app. It could have been possible to design a totally separate app called, EE Simple or even like EE Kids. But it was actually pretty important for us just to make this kind of a visual toggle that somebody who's ready, or who first wants a simple interface, but then maybe is ready to move on to the more full tool set, that this can be enabled. So in the app, on the settings, if I turn simple interface on, what's going to happen when I create a new project is there's just going to be a smaller set of buttons, and they're slightly larger, and hopefully for people where the current or the standard user interface is just a little too busy, or there's so many features that it might be overwhelming, that this might give kind of beginning users who are maybe not used to design tools or screen recording tools just an easier, more accessible entry point before moving on into the kind of more standard UI. And you can create a project in the full UI and open it up in the simple user interface. So
Perfect.
we think that this is going to be a nice addition, not just for younger users, but I think kind of beginning users or early users of any age, but also, just anyone who might just want kind of this kind of little bit simpler overall user layout.
I know in running workshops where we introduced the concept of screencasting in this particular tool, it's been a request even of like classroom teachers to have a simple user interface just so they can get used to the tool as well. And I mean, helpful for students, absolutely, but even helpful, like you said, for someone who's new to the tool, or if you're transitioning from maybe a more stripped down, simpler screencasting tool, this could be a nice way to ease into something that's ultimately going to be more complex and give you more function.
Sure. And, you might like this, that we, even in the simple UI, this export workflow does kind of have this intermediate menu,
Right.
but we've also changed kind of the options that are here, that they're saving the project, saving the video, the camera roll, and triggering kind of an MP4 open in, so that those kind of options are just one tap away in this simple UI. And then you can go deeper if you just tap the more button, but our initial planning and conversations were like, these were probably the three most immediate things that people who are using the simple UI would probably be using, but you're just one extra tap away before accessing the full export flow, which I'll come back to in a second.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the full UI. So, as a longtime math teacher, this next big feature, I think, or new feature, I think is pretty exciting. This is our first iteration at building it in, and what's tricky is that it's not just an equation editor, but we also had to build in, it's an equation editor where the objects made with it function the same way as other objects and explain everything. So, that's a challenging, or that's a design challenge, but I think this first crack at it is pretty solid. So I'm going to hit the insert object menu, and I'm going to choose math equations. And so I'm just going to, harken back to my algebra 1 days, and I'm just going to do a simple function, y equals 3x. Do you remember your slope intercept form there, Greg? I know you're a history teacher, but
I'll let you take it.
So I've just done a simple equation. Great. I actually probably could have done this in a text box. I guess that's not a great example. All right, I'll just move this over here. Let me do another one. Okay, so maybe now I want to get a little bit more fancy, and I'm going to say y equals, let's throw a fraction in here, 1/2 x, plus 4. So now if I wanted to write a fraction, I have a little bit easier of a mechanism to do something like that. Plus the square root of something, just for fun. I don't know what that something's going to be, but this is probably, let's see if this will work. Oh, yeah, it will. So like, at least we just wanted to make it kind of intuitive to be able to construct some standard math representations. And we think that'll be useful for people. And like I said, those things behave like other objects that you're used to and explain everything.
Right.
The one, I guess, limitation there, at least initially, though we'll work on getting that, is while recording, you don't necessarily see, the same way with the text box, the character by character appearance,
Right.
as you're writing at the equation. So right now, if you're recording as you're constructing an equation, it'll go from nothing to when it's completed appearing. So I have a feeling if people are creating pretty complex equations, they're probably going to pause as they build it and have it appear, which is probably better for the viewer
Yeah.
anyway.
So question about this. Like a text box, can you double tap and go back into editing mode, or is this like a one-shot deal?
No, it's a many shot deal. So here's my first little slope intercept form equation, and I decided I want to make my y-intercept 7. I can do that. And even though, I don't know if you noticed, but my object here is kind of skewed and enlarged, I'm still able to edit those things there. And yeah, you can get pretty crazy as far as some of the structures that you can build. We had some recent high school graduates working with us for the past couple of weeks, and we were asking them for some reminders about some calculus and integral functions about, like, does this make sense? But the whole team, especially in Poland, they're all math whizzes, so they know what they're doing. But as I was sitting there, even as a former math teacher, I was like, I need to remember, what does the proper graph of a, something or other look like. I'm not going to say anymore and embarrass myself. So anyway, there's the construction of these elements. However, wait, there's more. I don't know if you noticed this. There's a couple of these familiar symbols. There's this blue to resize the text box fine.
Yeah.
There's the green check to confirm. But in the top left, there's this little orange thing. When I tap that, it'll actually generate a graph of that equation or that function.
That is ridiculous. I didn't know that existed.
You do now. And let me see if this, I don't know if this one's going to graph. Let's see. We'll just see what happens. Oh, look at that. What a strange, I don't know if that's accurate or not. It might be. We'll have to check.
But this has major implications, because previously, this was limited to something like Desmos or Fluid Math, but to be able to narrate like internally and not have to pull in screenshots from other applications is pretty powerful.
Yeah, and right now I would say that this is just version 1 of this, and this is one tool within a much larger app. So I think if there's certain aspects or elements of some of those other really very specific math equation or graphing apps that, like, you might be still okay with those for certain things. However, I will say that one thing that when you're dealing with certain functions, like, there's new kind of possibilities that you can do here. So I'm just going to go to my my photo roll here. Oh, here, look, you can see an updated kind of source picker. And I don't know what's in my camera roll here, but okay, so here's a nice picture at the beach, okay? And say I was interested in maybe coming up with an idea of, like, well, there's an interesting line here formed by the meeting of the edge of the pool and the pool itself. And say I was learning about slope and I wanted to kind of estimate, what the slope of, that separator line is. And, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's like half X. So what I could do to kind of test a theory is say y equals, oh, look at that, my equation is red. I didn't know that was going to happen. Oops, I forgot to hit graph. And, like, I can see, I don't know if you see, like, I can just graph and overlay on top of an image.
That's awesome.
And now, like, this math teacher in me is like, okay, so is my slope too steep, or is it too shallow? Maybe I need it's probably more like 1/8 X or something like that. Or maybe I would even look closely and be like, okay, this line is not a great example, but, like, here's the origin, and it looks like, it goes here. So over 3 up 1. So maybe the slope is more like 1/3. I don't know. I'm just making up math as I talk here. But these are things that are possible. Another thing that's possible, and this may crash our Google Hangout here, but, like, I could have a video,
Oh boy.
and then put a graph on top of that. And I'm actually doing a live video here. This really might crash everything.
It's going to crash.
Sorry, ed tech teacher, if that's what happens. But I could have a live video playing in the background and be able to change this. And I could also change the scale of the graph here. I'm just kind of zooming in and out. So depending on what the range or dimensions are. So, the graphing can graph most kind of simple continuous functions, quadratics and things like that. But I think what's more exciting is the way you'll be able to use this equation editor and the graphing function while mixing it with other media or stories or things like that.
So I'm thinking as well that, while you were doing that live video shot, I remember at one point there was a demo of like a kid like kick flipping on a skateboard.
Sure.
But to be able to like have a video of like a ball dropping or a basketball being shot or something like that, like pause the video, drop a graph on top of it, explain what's going on, pull the graph off, continue playing the video. Like you can make some pretty dynamic stuff that way.
Yeah, let me see if this will work. So, our web browsing, recording a video that's playing from the web, of course, is limited. But even in like live demo, Stingray jumping out. This is like one of my most terrifying ideas that video. Okay, jumping Stingray. So I hope nothing controversial comes when I click this video. But anyway, even in like a live setting, if I wasn't using this to try to record a screen capture, like I could run a YouTube video that I hope is, okay. And even on top of this, I could add a math equation graph. And, find some interesting way to, I guess this would be more of like a parabolic function. So sorry for my mess. So, y equals x squared. I guess it would be negative x squared. So let me move that graph out of the way. So like maybe the graph of a stingray jumping out of the water somehow follows an inverted parabola or, whatever. I think there's kind of fun things you can do.
Oh, yeah.
Messing around there.
And then if you're screen recording, that'll capture with some degree that the video running in the background as well?
To some degree. What you can do sometimes is in the top right corner, we have to kind of come up with a better labeling system. This isn't actually an insert photo. This actually is like a quick snap, so it'll take a freeze frame of the current web view. So, we're not able, even just from a technical, but I also think from like a developer agreement thing, to actually be able to do like video capture of an embedded web browser or video. But this is kind of a way to get around that. So you can actually like tap the camera thing a bunch of times and it'll capture a bunch of frames.
Oh, nice.
And just so you know, this is clear all annotations.
Excellent.
This button here. So we're excited to see what people do with the equation editor, and also to get feedback on what else we can do to make it better. And I guess the last thing I'll show here is the export workflow. So as I mentioned before, the export button has been all combined into one. This is still the save project, but the export button, one tap will bring you to this new screen. And this is a beta, so there's still a few things that we're adjusting. Our hope is that like for many destinations here, that you're only 2 taps away. So if I want to get to my photo roll, I tap photos and done. If I want to get to send the video via iMessage, I tap it, I'm done. It'll render and then I'm done. But then of course your sources that have folders or subfolders, then I can click it and get in deeper. I'm not logged in on this version.
Right.
But that intermediary pop-up, we realized that if you're not saving to the photo roll or YouTube, then it was automatically introducing an extra step for a lot of users who were saving to Dropbox or Google Drive or Evernote. So we hope that this redesigned flow gives 2 things. One, it gives more direct access to those destinations where content might be going, but then also just makes it easier to find all of the possible things you might be doing, especially like open in, which I know is a very popular
Right.
trigger. We just wanted to make that much more upfront, especially as people are sending more content to things like iTunes U or other spaces that, you know, I can just tap it and it'll render and send the artifact there.
Right.
And then at the top, this is the segmented control. And as I tap through these things, I don't know if you notice different things kind of graying out and in. So depending on the file type, it's adjusting to the applications that we've got direct integrations built that actually can receive that.
Perfect.
All right, I'm going to go back to me, like me as a human. Yeah, so those are the things that we're most excited about. There's, of course, other like bug fixes, but then we also had a long list of other items that we're in our big Explain Everything 3 list, and not all of them made it into version 3.0, but they'll be in version 3.1. So, you know, we wanted to get this out and ready and stable and working, but then right away, we've got a bunch of awesome other cool stuff that'll be coming with it. Yeah, and I guess the other thing people should know is that the price is going up to $399 and $199 VPP. So it's a free update, obviously, for existing users, but it's just kind of the new price moving forward. It has just to do with our growing user base and long-term sustainability of our company and our ability to support, you know, that growing user base. However, you know, schools whose budget cycles began July 1 or August 1, if you're doing a big purchase soon or planning on doing a big purchase, you can do it now at the $299, $149 price, and then enjoy the free update when it comes out, or deploy those apps later, whatever works for you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the overview. We appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to digging into the equation editor and making ridiculous graphs. Thank you for everyone who joined us this evening. The video will be archived. If you want to send this out to your colleagues, check the EdTech Teacher website. I'm sure you guys will probably have this cross-posted somewhere as well.
Yes, we will.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks again, Rashawn, for all the updates, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone.
All right.